So a very interesting Austrian Grand Prix, wasn't it? I mean, yes, Max Verstappen takes the win at the end, but what a battle we had throughout, and even Charles Leclerc leading the race at one point, something we've not seen for quite a few races. Finally, Max Verstappen's consecutive race laps led come to an end this Grand Prix, and pretty much as exciting as it got, wasn't it, for the front? Yes, the virtual safety car came out, lap 15, the two Ferraris pitted, the Mercedes pitted, even Alonso pitted even though he started on the hard, which was a bit of an odd strategy, but Max Verstappen stayed out, and at one point sort of did question it because there was a lot of high deg, but their pace was just that much that they knew, or he knew, it'd be comfortable in the end to make the move. He pitted quite a few laps later, lap 25, he came out behind Charles Leclerc, but he was brilliant in his battle, wasn't he? Much wiser in the pass of Charles Leclerc compared to what we've seen with Perez and Sainz, who had a brilliant ding-dong battle, didn't they? But he was wise. He just held back at the exit of turn 2 for that third DRS down the main straight into that corner where he knew he'd just pick off Charles Leclerc, whereas Perez was just a bit like gung-ho and just wanted to get the overtake done and knew he was faster. But it was brilliant defensive work from Sainz when we see in that battle with Perez, wasn't it? Fantastic. But yeah, Max Verstappen, he was so far ahead, comfortable, and it was brilliant to see them take that last pit stop on lap 69 to come in, get the soft tyres, and for him to go for that fastest lap, which Perez held at the time. That's how confident they were and how brilliant they were, weren't they? They just knew that they could do that sort of stuff, whereas most people wouldn't risk it where there's 3 or 4 second gap potential for mistakes in the pit stop, which could have cost them and it could have made them look horrendous, wouldn't it? But yeah, let's hit the teams. Max Verstappen wins for Red Bull. Perez was a brilliant comeback, actually started 15th, didn't he? He had a brilliant overtake moves throughout. He was on fire today, Sergio Perez, much what we needed to see from him. I mean, I think it just shows the strength of the Red Bull here in the Austrian Grand Prix. They were just that much better than everyone else. He had a nice battle with George Russell. He finally made the move. He then came on lap 26. He came out in P10 after that, battled his way forward, and then it was just that DRS on that Red Bull again. It's shown its strength here at the Austrian Grand Prix. It was just so powerful down the straights, even where other cars were getting stuck in sort of a DRS train. That was just showing that the way they've made that work, it was absolutely brilliant. And then we had that fantastic battle with him and Carlos Sainz. Carlos Sainz defending like a lion, wasn't he? And I think that actually really helped his teammate Charles Leclerc secure second place, because at one point it looked like Perez was on such a charge that he might even be able to catch Leclerc towards the end of the race. But the 4 or 5 battle that he had with Carlos Sainz, immense for us to watch, but really cost him, probably could have been a potential Red Bull 1-2. But yeah, much better performance. He's got his podium, did Perez, much better performance, and I think he'd be very happy with that. Leclerc and the Ferraris, what a turn up in performance for them. Yes, they weren't in a battle with the Red Bull. I think the Red Bull were a Liga 1, but they were comfortable in second place was Charles Leclerc. He was there pretty much throughout. He held the lead for a little while, but Max Verstappen on the hards, and while Ferrari and Leclerc were on the mediums after that first stop, they didn't really have the pace to keep the Red Bulls back, but he was comfortably ahead of Carlos Sainz at that stage. Carlos Sainz sadly got a track limit penalty, as did quite a number of others, as we'll go through as we get to them. But a solid race, brilliant second position for him, and Ferrari finally finding some form again. I think they've kind of understood the changes and the updates to the car and trying to get the balance right on the Ferrari, and it's really shown and paid dividends for him this weekend. Carlos Sainz had a brilliant race, didn't he? Started third but sadly finished fourth behind Sergio Perez. He got a track limits violation, as did like Hamilton, Ocon, Yuki Tsunoda, Albon. There's quite a few being dished out, wasn't there? Surprisingly, Perez didn't get one though, because he looked like He was going off track at turn 9 and 10 a few times. Lewis Hamilton was furious. He came on the radio sort of every lap for about 6 or 7 laps. So surprised, because they would seem like they were being really harsh on that, but Perez seemed to get away with it. But Carlos Sainz didn't. He got a track limit penalty. He then took that penalty, and that cost him. He came out then just ahead of Perez. I know Perez probably would have caught him and got him in the end, but it would have been a lot closer to the end, and that battle might have just seen him, hold on to the end. But yeah, it wasn't to be for Carlos Sainz, but a much better race from him. It was brilliant to see him holding back the Perez for as long as he could. Used his head wisely, didn't he, when he sort of let Perez past into turn 1, just kind of got the DRS off him and then held his position down in that next corner. It was brilliant racing all round. But it's interesting when he came on the entrance and said, he's intimidating me. Oh, that's what he's meant to do. He's behind you, he's going to do that, isn't he? But yeah, what an upturning performance for them. And next on to the Mercedes team. They'll be really disappointed, weren't they? I think they were just really underwhelmed of how this car was performing. Lewis Hamilton started 5th, he finished in 7th. He pitted on the virtual safety car, which looked like the right thing to do, and then he got a 5-second penalty for the track limits, and he was really annoyed at that, wasn't he? It did seem to let it go, and then he was just pointing at everybody, he's doing it, why are there no penalties yet? And then even Toto came on the radio saying, look, just calm down, they'll get their penalties, but some of them never come. But interesting to see. He seemed to have a brake issue throughout the Grand Prix, and that really cost him. He came out P8 after his pit stop with the penalty. He was about 7.5 seconds behind Norris. But the Mercedes really struggled. Same with George Russell. He started 11th. He did move forward though up into P8, but just passed a couple of the slower cars ahead of him. A solid race, but nothing spectacular from Mercedes. I think they'll be disappointed after a bit of a resurgence, didn't they, in the last weekend. But they're going to Silverstone, where they've got some big upgrades coming. Let's see how they hang on there. Aston Martins, again, they struggled, didn't they? Fernando Alonso, he started on the hard, started 7th, finished 6th in the end, but it was a strange decision for him to pit under the virtual safety car, even though he was on the harder tyres. You'd thought he'd run longer, but it's kind of held out for him in the end. He was catching up to the cars in front at the end, but yeah, it didn't work out for too much. And Lance Stroll, he was one that went for a 3-stop strategy, didn't work out. He started 6th, went 10th in the end, got a point. Yeah, pretty poor race from him overall. The McLarens, Lando Norris was absolutely brilliant. What a battle with him and Lewis Hamilton. He made the nice move on Hamilton on lap 28. And then he had a decent battle with Sergio Perez. Unfortunately, he made a bit of a mistake there, didn't he, which let Sergio through a bit easier than he probably would have liked. But a P5 finish for them, which is a big upturning performance. Them upgrades really working well for him. But Oscar Piastri had a complete opposite race, didn't he? He started 13th, finished 17th. Just a shocking race for him. He was nowhere. Had a bit of an incident, got damage, was poor going backwards. And the same with Alpine actually as well. Pierre Gasly started 9th, finished 9th in the end. Solid points for him, I suppose, but again, there were no real impressions for him. And then Ocon also, he got a 5-second penalty for an unsafe release, and he then ran in P12. He was 8 seconds behind Albon. They really struggled as well, didn't they, for pace. The Haas team, Kevin Magnussen, he had a pit lane start because he did a setup change. He started 19th, finished 19th in the end. He did try well to try and keep Bottas and Yuki Tsunoda behind him, but with them two on the fresher tyres, they lost 2 places on 1 lap, didn't he, at the end there. They'll be disappointed. And Nico Hülkenberg, obviously, he went out early on. Not the race that they probably would have hoped for, would they? Because Nico Hülkenberg started really well in P8, but then just seemed to lose positions. They seemed too hard on their tyres. It should seem one of their biggest problems in the race. A bit like Ferrari in that sort of sense. AlphaTauri, Nick De Vries, he had another poor race, didn't he? Started 20th, but he did finish 13th in the end, but he was a bit ragged, wasn't he? Got a 5-second penalty for forcing Kevin Magnussen off the track. I mean, it just ran him off. You got to leave him some Gasnick, and their sort of battle that happened in Canada as well seemed to have carried on here in Austria, them two finding themselves together on track. But better performance, I suppose. He's moved forward up the field, but I still think it was a bit scruffy from him. Yuki Tsunoda started 16th, finished in 18th, one of his poorer weekends. His first lap incident, we sent him to the back. He then got a 5-second penalty for track limits, and then he got a 10-second penalty for not taking that 5-second penalty correctly. He'll be disappointed with his weekend. Alfa Romeo, Bottas started 14th, finished 16th. He went backwards again this weekend. He seemed to be all over the place. Not sure what happened with him there. Zhou Guanzu started 17th, finished 14th, so another decent performance. He beats his teammate in the race. He was comfortably ahead of Nick de Vries in the Alfa Romeo. Yeah, decent job from him. Williams, Alex Albon started 10th, finished 11th. He made a nice move on Magnussen, and then a nice move on Yuki Tsunoda also. He then sadly got a 5-second penalty for track limits, and he was really annoyed at that, especially at his team, for his engineer sort of saying, you know, why have you not telling me about this? You know, I need to know what's going on in the race, or what's happening with these penalties. But he could have just couldn't hold off Stroll for that P10 point, but nevertheless a decent result in that Williams. Logan Sargent had a much better weekend, didn't he? P18 to P13, up 5 places, much better race for him. He was in the points at one point, but then sadly he also got a track limit 5-second penalty in the end. But yeah, he just better than running at the back, isn't it, Logan Sargent? He'll probably take some confidence from this, and hopefully we'll see them move forward from here. Next weekend we've got Silverstone. A few changes with the tyres, haven't we, coming up? Some big upgrades like McLaren, the home of motorsports, isn't it, for me anyway. Silverstone, what a fantastic circuit we have here. Next weekend, really can't wait for that. Watch out for the driver ratings video and the preview for the Silverstone Grand Prix next weekend, coming this week. Thanks very much for watching. Please like, subscribe and comment as always. I'll see you in the next video.